Hello, I'm John Hagelin, quantum physicist and teacher of the Transcendental Meditation program. Welcome to this introductory lecture on Transcendental Meditation. What is meditation? Is it a way to relax? Is it a technique to promote health, vitality, and longevity? Is it a means to develop creativity, IQ, and peak mental performance? Or is it a path to inner peace and enlightenment? As we will see, it is all these things and more. To understand meditation and consciousness, we need to understand a little bit about the physical universe. Modern science over the past 50 years has probed deeper levels of physical reality. Modern science has explored more fundamental level of nature's functioning. From the superficial level of macroscopic physics, the sensory objects that surround us, to the world of the molecule and the atom and the nucleus and subnuclear levels of nature's functioning as shown in this chart. This chart reveals the hierarchical structure of the laws of nature, from superficial diversity to fundamental unity, shown at the foundation of this chart. As modern physics has probed deeper levels of nature's functioning, it has revealed that more fundamental levels of nature are progressively more unified. The four forces of nature deep within the atomic nucleus become three and two, and ultimately one unified field of all the laws of nature, shown at the basis of this chart. This discovery of the unified field by modern science is the fulfillment of Einstein's lifelong dream to discover the single unified source of the diversified universe. Modern science has thereby discovered the unified field, a single universal field of intelligence at the basis of all forms and phenomena in the universe. From this fundamental perspective of modern science, meditation, properly understood and properly practiced, is a systematic technique to experience deeper levels of mind, more subtle levels of thought, exploring deeper levels of human intelligence. And these deeper levels of human intelligence, shown on the right-hand side of this chart, correspond to the direct experience of deeper levels of intelligence in nature. This inward flow of the awareness quickly culminates in the direct experience of the unified field at the basis of this chart, in the simplest settled state of human awareness, the most maximally expanded state of human consciousness. This is the meditative state. This experience of the unified field constitutes a fourth major state of human consciousness, distinct from waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And this fourth state of consciousness has the most profound implications for health, for brain development, for virtually every area of human life. Let us start with the field of health, for example. This meditative state constitutes a state of profound physiological rest, much deeper than sleep. During the deep rest of meditation, profound rejuvenation and repair of the physiology takes place. As a result, diseases can be prevented and cured. This chart, for example, shows a major medical study, one of 600, on the profound health benefits of transcendental meditation. It shows on a single chart every major category of disease. And it shows how twice-daily practice of transcendental meditation markedly reduces the incidence of every major category of disease, including, for example, 87% reduction in heart disease, a similar significant reduction in the incidence of cancer, 93% reduction in diseases of the nervous system, and so forth. Extraordinary health benefits from the deep rest of meditation. I think we can understand this wide-ranging health benefits, scientifically proven, of transcendental meditation by looking at the next chart, which shows reduction of stress through transcendental meditation. Of all the various means of reducing stress, and note that most disease is caused by stress, the transcendental meditation program is proven to be by far the most effective. This is a very important study of 146 previously published studies on reduction of stress through meditation and relaxation. It shows on the top the reduction of stress through transcendental meditation, and compares it to other relaxation techniques, including the so-called relaxation response, other meditation techniques, including progressive muscle relaxation, so-called biofeedback, and mantra meditation, and shows that transcendental meditation is vastly more effective at reducing stress and the deleterious effects of stress on health of any meditation or relaxation technique ever studied by modern science. One significant byproduct or side effect of reducing stress is a reduction in life-afflicting, health-afflicting, stress-driven behaviors. For example, smoking. Transcendental meditation turns out to be the most effective, scientifically proven means of reducing smoking, a stress-driven behavior, as this chart shows. Simply by learning the Transcendental Meditation program, there is a very marked reduction in cigarette use and nicotine dependence in comparison to every other approach that has been studied, including pharmacological approaches. And this is very significant because when you learn Transcendental Meditation, the teacher isn't acting as a coach to encourage you to stop smoking. The stopping of smoking is a spontaneous result of the reduction of stress and resulting stress-driven behaviors. Perhaps most important in the field of health, Transcendental Meditation has been shown to be extremely effective in promoting heart health and reducing, for example, high blood pressure, which is the leading risk factor for heart disease, which is the world's #1 killer. This study, for example, published in the journal Hypertension, is one of many studies on reduced high blood pressure through Transcendental Meditation. It compares Transcendental Meditation, shown in green, with simple eyes closed rest and so-called progressive muscle relaxation, and finds that Transcendental Meditation is highly significantly effective in reducing blood pressure over 3 months in comparison to other meditation techniques. More effective, in fact, even than hypertensive drugs, without the negative serious side effects of hypertensive drugs and without the expense of a lifetime of dependence on hypertensive drugs. Let us look at what has been called the modern malaise, the epidemic of our age, so-called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is simply a combination of leading risk factors of high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. These are trends that have been pervasive in society, even among young people today, and so the medical establishment has been looking for ways to treat this constellation of risk factors called metabolic syndrome, and finally has discovered Transcendental Meditation. This very important study, published last summer by the American Medical Association in the Archives of Internal Medicine, shows extremely significant reductions in all of these risk factors of diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity. And these risk factors really point to a very negative health prognosis, particularly when it's developing in young people, as it is increasingly everywhere in the world, perhaps especially in the United States. It's amazing to find one simple intervention, non-pharmacological, that is capable of treating all of these risk factors, and Transcendental Meditation is the only approach that has been shown to do so. In addition, of course, today we have what are called chronic illnesses. Chronic illnesses afflict over 100 million Americans. More than half of all Americans over the age of 40 suffer from some form of chronic disease. We've talked about diabetes, we've mentioned high blood pressure, but this chart also shows the effect of Transcendental Meditation on reducing arthritis and asthma, bronchitis, headache, and many other chronic illnesses. Chronic illnesses are diseases for which modern medicine offers no cure. And these affect as many as half of all people in the United States. Now, all of these people can find relief simply through Transcendental Meditation and the rejuvenative effects of the profound rest gained during Transcendental Meditation. Finally, in terms of health, it is very interesting to see that all of the effects of meditation on the human physiology, also on mental functioning, are the opposite of aging. For example, in this chart here, we see the reduction of blood pressure, the improvement of auditory threshold, the improvement in vision, the increased cardiovascular efficiency, the reduced susceptibility to stress, the improved learning ability, memory, creativity, intelligence, and so forth from transcendental meditation are all in the opposite effect of the deleterious effect of aging. Therefore, transcendental meditation could aptly be called an anti-aging program. And interestingly, people who've been practicing transcendental meditation for 5 years or more have a biological age that is about 12 years younger than their chronological counterparts. So this is a very, very significant approach to increasing vitality, health, and longevity. But perhaps more important, at least to me as an educator, is the effect of transcendental meditation on brain development, on the development of our full mental potential. After all, the transcendental meditation program is a mental technique, and all of these profound health benefits are just physiological side effects of what is fundamentally a mental process. As we said, and as this chart reminds us, transcendental meditation is a systematic technique to experience the unified field in the most expanded, settled state of human consciousness. It's a fourth state of consciousness with its own physiological and psychological characteristics. We can look into the brain functioning through transcendental meditation by looking at this volunteer subject shown here in a red cap, next to leading brain researcher Fred Travis, looking at the electrical activity of the brain during transcendental meditation through what is called the electroencephalogram. During an EEG scan or electroencephalogram, electrodes are placed upon the scalp to measure the firing of neurons in different portions of the brain. The frontal and occipital lobes of the brain, the temporal and parietal lobes of the brain, the whole brain is examined. And when the brain is examined in this way, and the electrical impulses are measured, a chart such as the one shown here is produced, with lots of squiggly lines scrolling across the page, simply measuring the firing of neurons, the electrical activity of the brain in different portions of the brain. The front of the brain shown at the top of the chart, the center of the brain shown in the center, the middle of the chart, and the back of the brain shown at the bottom of the chart. Well, computer analysis helps us make sense of these complicated EEGs. And when you look at the EEG of a meditator versus a non-meditator, you see a striking difference shown here. Here on the left, we see the brain of a non-meditator in normal, agitated, waking consciousness, both the top view of the brain, shown at the top of the chart, and the front view of the brain, shown at the bottom of the chart. On the brain, we see electrodes placed, shown as little circles, and connecting some of these electrodes are bars. These bars are important. They indicate some coordination or correlation between neighboring regions of the brain. They show when the electrical activity of the brain, the firing of neurons, occurs synchronously in an integrated and harmonious way. But there's not much such coherence shown in ordinary waking consciousness. Instead, on the right, we see the same subject 3 months later during his practice of the Transcendental Meditation program. And what we see is that the brain is now entirely coherent. It is a profoundly integrated brain where the electrical activity of the entire brain is found to be in concert, where the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain and the total brain functions in a highly integrated and coordinated way during the meditation practice. Well, this is an educational breakthrough of the foremost magnitude, because science shows that such orderly brain functioning, such global EEG coherence, is scientifically correlated with increasing creativity, increased intelligence or IQ, improved memory or learning ability, increased moral reasoning, improved psychological stability and emotional maturity, enhanced alertness and reaction time. In other words, everything good about the brain depends on its orderly functioning. Now today, through transcendental meditation, we can directly increase the orderliness of brain functioning in children or adults of any age. And with it, we see increased IQ and creativity, the systematic development of our full human potential. For example, this next study is one of many performed on college students that shows that IQ, or intelligence, increases longitudinally year by year among college students who practice transcendental meditation. This is extraordinary because the previous view of human potential was that intelligence freezes at adolescence and doesn't increase in college students and certainly doesn't increase in adults, begins to decline in adults, in fact. But as a result of transcendental meditation, we see in this chart the systematic longitudinal development of intelligence in students and indeed adults of any age. So this is quite extraordinary. But today we understand that the brain is extremely malleable, extremely plastic, that the brain is capable of forging new connections and learning fundamentally new things at any time throughout life. But the problem with the brain is, as they say, use it or lose it. And there is nothing other than the meditative state that engages the total brain, as we saw before, global EEG coherence. The study of physics, for example, or mathematics, or literature, or music, or the arts, engage tiny slivers of the brain only. Nothing in the field of education engages the total brain, nor develops the brain holistically. Only the meditative state engages and systematically develops the total brain. This is an educational development, a development in the field of human potential, truly of the foremost magnitude. What happens in the absence of this holistic experience, in the absence of the meditative state? Well, much of the brain begins to atrophy. And in particular, you see the development of what are called functional holes in the brain. I'd like to show you a very interesting chart here where we see a so-called normal brain on the left in this chart. And what we're really looking at is blood flow throughout the brain. You see a fairly even distribution of blood flow on the left. On the right, you see the brain of a violent student. And we see that the brain is basically filled with holes. These aren't actual holes in the gray matter of the brain, but they are so-called functional holes. Parts of the brain that just aren't firing, are not actively participating in our moment-by-moment experience. This is the result of the absence of holistic experience to engage and develop the total brain. In particular, also, we see in this chart a clustering of these functional holes at the top of the right-hand brain, and that's the so-called prefrontal cortex, here beneath the forehead. It's the so-called higher brain, responsible for all of our higher human functions. Moral reasoning, planning, judgment, the ability to consider the implications of our actions. All of this constitutes our higher brain. When the higher brain fails to develop properly and is filled with functional holes, we don't truly have adult human behavior. This higher brain, or prefrontal cortex, also called the executive center of the brain, develops mainly between the ages of 12 and 25. If it does not develop by the age of 25, then it won't develop at all. Unfortunately, under stress, which pervades the classrooms today, particularly of our inner cities, and indeed pervades entire regions of our world, under stress, the prefrontal cortex shuts down. And under chronic stress, it shuts down chronically and fails to develop properly. Under acute stress, the prefrontal cortex shuts down because under a stress or fight or flight situation, if somebody takes a swing at you, you have to duck, and duck instinctively. It's not the time to philosophize about it. But unfortunately, under chronic stress, the prefrontal cortex shuts down chronically, fails to develop properly, and that is an arrested development of an extremely significant kind. It means that the higher human functions of decision-making, planning, judgment, moral reasoning fail to develop properly, and as a result, you could actually truthfully say we are living in what is predominantly an adolescent society, with aggression and short-sighted, narrow-minded behavior, all cramped by this improper development of the brain. So transcendental meditation is essential in education and for life because it develops the total brain and it eliminates these functional holes in two fundamental ways. Number one, it is effective at reducing stress and the deleterious effects of stress on brain functioning. And number two, it actually engages the prefrontal cortex and connects the prefrontal cortex with the rest of the brain so that the higher brain or executive center of the brain can exert executive control over the primitive brain, bringing mature, adult, far-sighted behavior. Finally, the Transcendental Meditation Program is, again, the technique for direct experience of the unified field to develop full human potential, higher states of consciousness, or enlightenment. As this chart reminds us, the experience of the unified field at the basis of this chart is the maximally expanded state of human comprehension. This expanded state of comprehension that results from total brain functioning, that results from meditation, is the most comprehensive state of consciousness. We could call it global citizenship. It means the ability to comprehend the long-range, far-reaching implications of our actions, so that we think and act in a more global way, with maximum life-supporting influence for ourselves and for the whole society and for the environment in which we live. Such total brain functioning is called enlightenment. It also means, as this chart again shows, that the fundamental unity of life at the basis of mind and matter becomes a more and more familiar aspect of ourselves. And when the unity of life becomes more and more familiar, then the unity of life and the unity of humanity becomes more a living reality in daily life. We begin to see others in terms of ourself. Everything is as near and as dear as oneself. The capacity to love is maximized. And imagine the effect on interpersonal relationships when the capability to love is systematically developed. And when everything is as near and as dear as oneself. This is really the foundation of ideal interpersonal relationships and a harmonious and peaceful society. So let me summarize this brief introduction to Transcendental Meditation as follows. Transcendental meditation is the most widely practiced, extensively researched, and broadly prescribed by doctors of any meditation technique in the world. It has profound, scientifically proven benefits for health, vitality, and youthful longevity. It promotes coherent brain functioning, increased creativity, IQ, and peak mental performance. And long-term practice of transcendental meditation develops enlightenment, total brain functioning, which brings evolutionary behavior, we say global citizenship, along with inner peace, unity, and social harmony. I sincerely hope that all of you will take this opportunity to learn the Transcendental Meditation Program. Thank you very much.